I used to think that I was just weird. I mean, I am weird, but please do not become one of these pickup guys. You cannot run away from your own bullshit. All right, my friends, it is time for another AMA. We're out here once again in Japan. Actually, you might hear some background noise, so let me show you what's going on. I'm at a hotel literally right on the racetrack. You might hear some cars in the background, and if this is the kind of thing that is interesting to you guys, then I highly suggest you check out the Jubbal and Cars YouTube channel and Instagram, because that's where I'm posting all the car stuff. I even do a tour of this hotel. It's like a car enthusiast's dream. It's really one of my favorite hotels of all time. But enough about that. We're gonna go through your YouTube community post as well as your Instagram questions. First off, it seems like times will change fast and no one can say just how quickly. What do you think are some of the ways current med students can protect themselves? Which specialties do you think are safest? This is a tough question because AI is constantly changing at such a rapid pace, and what it might grow to be better suited at can be different than what we expect today. Radiology, pathology, those are specialties that are frequently discussed as being replaced by AI sooner than other specialties. But we do have a video on the Med School Insiders channel explaining why that's not the case. We actually worked with radiologists who specialize in AI research in radiology to help us create that video. And then I did my own opinion piece video, which is far less informed, but it's more my take on AI in radiology, and that's on this channel, linked below. The thing is, specialties that are more algorithmic are more likely to be replaced by AI sooner than others. And the reason I say replace is that it's not happening anytime soon, at least based on current understandings of AI and medicine. It's going to take several years for that to happen. But when people say more or less algorithmic, what you have to realize is that every specialty in medicine is algorithmic at its core. Even plastic surgery. I remember we were doing this like high school student outreach, and we were med students. We would go to these schools and teach them about medicine, about medical school, things like that. And oftentimes students discuss plastic surgery being of interest, primarily because it's more artistic, and these are like artistic students that wanted to do the art of plastic surgery. And while I do think plastic surgery is one of the most creative fields, there's still a science to beauty. So when you start reading the textbooks in plastic surgery, you start discussing the millimeters, the proportions of different facial elements or even body contouring that makes a more aesthetic physique. Even the glute shape for men versus women are different. And discussing aesthetically, what are those principles? There's a science to plastic surgery as well. And for any given defect when reconstruction, but even for an aesthetic procedure, there are certain procedures or management options that are gonna be standard of care. And if you deviate from that too far, then you're not practicing the best medicine, malpractice, worse results, etc. So even plastic surgery, which is one of the most creative and least algorithmic, has a certain level of algorithm to it. By the way, the cars here, like, these guys have impeccable taste. You got GR86s, you got an Ariel Atom, got Porsche 911s. This is like kid in a candy store. Again, if you guys like cars, check out the Jubbal and Cars channel. I'm gonna do my best to not get distracted by this. I would say that overall though, surgical specialties are the hardest to replicate because there is that technical component in addition to the judgment. Some would also say that psychiatry is at lower risk because it's complex discussions with a patient if you're doing psychotherapy. But one of these companies that I'm an investor and an advisor in, they actually have this incredible realistic chat AI model where you can have a conversation with this AI tool to train therapy students, to train medical students on patient encounters. And the implications for this kind of technology very far reaching, but it has shown me that even with things like psychiatry, AI can, at current stages, can already pick up a lot of the emotional cues. So things that we perceive to be incredibly complex, AI might actually be better suited for than we expect. Looking at this list of other specialties, emergency medicine, AI can assist in triage for sure. Cardiology is incredibly algorithmic because we have so much research dumping into cardiology since #1 killer of Americans, heart disease. Internal medicine, family medicine, pediatrics, I think a lot of the primary care specialties are going to be more algorithmic. And remember, we're not going from here to just replacement, it's gonna be augmenting the physicians in those fields, and then eventually down the road, yeah, there might be some level of replacement or at least a huge shift in the job market where you need fewer of those specialists. Effects of AI in dentistry. I'm obviously not a dentist, I'm not a dental expert, maybe we'll cover that in a future video. Has anyone ever said you look similar to Obama? No one ever in person, but I've gotten maybe like a dozen comments over the years, and I leaned into it. So then I was Obama for Halloween 2 years in a row. What video games have you played or do you play? When I was a kid, Gran Turismo 1 through 5, Need for Speed on the PlayStation, Call of Duty, Modern Warfare 2, Black Ops, again, like college and earlier in StarCraft. But nowadays, I don't really play any games except for when I'm in the sim rig. That's the simulation racing. And sim racing is something I've only gotten recently into in the last couple years. I have a rig at my house and I have my triple monitors. I do iRacing primarily. Very excited for AC Evo, but my graphics card on my computer just can't handle it yet because it's not optimized. So trying to get a 50 series card, and then I'll be playing AC Evo, iRacing, and yeah, primarily those two. Do you think you would still be practicing medicine if you chose anesthesia or a more lifestyle-friendly specialty? Possibly, because for me, the issue was just not having enough hours in a day. And a surgical specialty is gonna be more hours per week on average than something like anesthesia. So with that extra, let's say 20 to maybe even 30 hours a week that I would have in anesthesia, maybe I wouldn't have quit. It was really the point of realizing that it wasn't sustainable to run the businesses and build the businesses and do plastic surgery residency. So to reduce that pain or that conflict, to say, well, actually you can do this because you have an extra 20 to 30 hours per week. Because talking to anesthesia residents, they say they work like 50, 55 hours on average based on the ones that I've spoken with. And in most surgical specialties, you're close to 80 most of the time. What specialty did he end up choosing and thought was best for him? So for the newer viewers to the channel, you can find my full story in other videos. In short, I matched into plastics, I left plastics, and I talk about why I chose plastics and why I left plastics in those other videos linked below. All right, hopping over to Instagram. By the way, I've been very impressed by the quality of questions this time around. Very thoughtful, inquisitive questions. We're gonna get through all of them. What's your take on schools and many organizations getting rid of DEI departments? For those who have watched my other videos, both on this channel and on Med School Insiders, about affirmative action, I understand the utility of certain measures like affirmative action, but there are unintended consequences that people do not acknowledge, and others pay the price through no fault of their own, right? Just based on the color of their skin or their background. And I'm talking about other minorities who pay the price there. I'd say I align with most people who are not hyper politicized. Most people who feel very strongly on a lot of these issues are highly politicized. They feel very strongly right or very strongly left. And I don't trust their thinking. I think those who tend to align very strongly with one ideology have not actually critically thought for themselves, because what are the chances that you, through your own independent thinking, magically aligned with this one group, one of two binary groups? It's very low, which is, I used to think that I was just weird. I mean, I am weird, but I used to think there was something wrong with me in middle school and high school. Actually, I think it was early high school, 9th grade, because we were talking about things like abortion and pro-life, pro-choice. That's like the first time it was hot. And talking about things like gay marriage. And everyone seemed to just go one direction or the other, and there was no nuance. And I felt like the odd one out by being like, hey guys, I don't know. I want to know the arguments for both sides and then come to a decision. And only looking back do I realize, like, wow, I don't know why I'm wired in that way, but I'm so fortunate that that comes to me naturally, because I think a lot of people have to work toward that, and they tend to just align with, oh, I'm this group, f the other group, right? And it's okay to say you don't know on certain things. I think that deprioritizing DEI is a big step in the right direction, but it's a messy topic. And again, I defer you to the affirmative action videos for more details on my thoughts there. Currently a junior undergrad pursuing medicine, GPA is at 3.4, been doing research since freshman year, but my grades are being affected. Research has been going well, putting out several co-authorships, and currently have 30 abstracts on my CV, wow. But don't want to keep jeopardizing my GPA. Yeah, you gotta find a balance there. So your research will definitely be a strength here, but I would actually urge you to consider reducing your hours, still maintain a good relationship with the lab and your PI, and still do the things you're supposed to do, but talk about, hey guys, my grades are suffering and I'm hoping that I can reduce my hours from 20 hours per week to 15 hours per week within the next 4 weeks. Is it okay if we have this ramp down transition period, or other ways to make this more sustainable so that it's not impacting my grades? That's one discussion you should have. The other thing is that the overwhelming majority of students, I fell into this camp too, are not studying as effectively as they should. I only learned how to study properly in medical school because it's like sink or swim. I would suggest that if you improve your time management, if you improve your study strategies, you can actually do both. And hey, I might be wrong. Maybe you already are doing active learning with desirable difficulties, spaced repetition, a lot of practice questions and practice tests. Maybe you're doing all those things. And maybe also your time management is super dialed. Maybe you're not wasting time on social media, doom scrolling, and maybe you're still exercising and prioritizing your sleep and have good sleep. Like, there's so many things to optimize that it's unlikely. Maybe you are. Maybe you're doing all these things, but it's unlikely. And I think most students would benefit, the overwhelming majority of students would benefit by reflecting on that and trying to improve their study strategies and their time management. What's your main hustle? Like, what you're really into. My main hustle is medical education, and I guess everything else is kind of a side hustle. I love cars. I love the stuff on this channel, which is a bit more structured. How can I prepare for the MCAT as a college freshman? The main thing here is get your study strategies and time management dialed in. Do very well on your GEs, your prerequisite courses, because that's, your 1 year of biology and chemistry and physics and all that stuff is going to translate directly to your MCAT. It's the same content. And then I would say sometime during your sophomore year, your second year, is when you want to look at various MCAT resources. It depends on when you're going to take the MCAT. I took my MCAT between sophomore and junior year. A lot of people do that, and I recommend that if you want to go straight to med school with no gap year. Because taking the MCAT at the end of your junior year, assuming you're not taking a gap year, which is the minority. Most people nowadays do take a gap year, more than 50%, right? But if you take the MCAT while you're applying, you have so many things going on. You have your classes, plus your applications, plus the MCAT, and you're probably not gonna perform as well versus if you take that summer and you can fully dedicate all your time and attention on that for like 3 months. The downside is that it is unlikely you will finish all of your prerequisites, which is for some students okay and other students not. It might be okay for you if you're a stronger student that can rely on a lot of self-directed learning and tends to do well on those subjects. So like for me, as an example, biochemistry, I never took biochemistry before I took the MCAT, still did quite well on that section because I already had great performance on my general chem and OChem and biology and all those other science classes. However, if it's something that you're struggling with or does not come as easily to you, then I would suggest you wait until you take that class. That will help you build a stronger foundation for when you take the MCAT. And when you are ready to study for the MCAT, Med School Insiders does have an MCAT course, which is completely comprehensive. On some of the tiers, we actually offer the AAMC official test materials as well. We give you 6 months of MEM subscription as well. That's the best MCAT flashcard app for memorization. And then we have our own practice tests and practice questions and extensive, comprehensive content, plus multiple video series and cars modules. And it was a huge undertaking, took us several years to put out, but we're very proud of it. And it also comes with a 510+ score guarantee on some of the tiers. You can learn more at medschoolinsiders.com/MCAT, and you can get $100 off your MCAT course using coupon code JAPANAMA. Best specialty with entrepreneurial ability. What you tend to see: emergency medicine, anesthesiology, radiology, specialties that have more manageable hours tend to be more conducive to side hustles. That being said, you will see entrepreneurial physicians in every specialty. You're just gonna see a higher likelihood and greater clustering in some of these more balanced lifestyle specialties. Best work-life balance surgery specialties. Urology for sure, and I'd say ophthalmology. Even though ophthalmology isn't like a traditional surgical specialty, you're still doing procedures. How to maintain a work-life balance in residency, or how to not burn out during that time. Number one, get really good at time management and being intentional with your time. Do multitasking correctly, which means combining an automatic task with a non-automatic task. As an example, riding an indoor bike on a trainer while talking to friends or family on the phone. Doing things that kill 2 birds with 1 stone, like exercising on your way to and from the hospital. I used to ride my bike. That helps a lot. That way you don't have to do cardio outside because you're already doing your cardio daily when you go to and from the hospital. Buy back your time. So things like grocery delivery services is going to be very helpful. What I use right now is Amazon Prime, and then you pay like $10 a month and you get unlimited Whole Foods deliveries bundled with that. And what will also help with avoiding burnout would be maintaining your social support network, maintaining those relationships, being in contact with people. exercising regularly, and prioritizing sleep as much as you can. Are doctors truly miserable? No, I wouldn't say doctors are truly miserable. It's a wide spectrum. Doctors are a very diverse group of people, and you're gonna have some people that love their specialty, some people that hate their specialty, a lot of people in the middle. Most people that I've spoken to, whether classmates, friends, colleagues, they've said that before medical school, and rather before becoming attendings, they had an expectation of medicine up here, and they still love the job, they still appreciate it, they still would not do anything else, but they realized that their expectation was greater than and overhyped what medicine was, because at the end of the day, they say, hey, medicine, it's a great job, but it's still a job. But again, especially online, you're gonna hear the ends of the spectrum more frequently, people that really love it and people that really hate it. Dude, my sleep schedule is a disaster. As a guy who's tried many morning and night routines, do you have any tips that actually work? Smart bulbs to automatically dim your lights at home in the 2 hours before bed. I like to also make mine red to really reduce the blue light exposure. Setting up your thermostat to also automatically cool the house, I like to do about around 2 hours before bedtime. I find utility in a sleep tracker. It helps keep me accountable. I want to see a better score the next day, and Hawthorne effect, right? When you're being observed, you actually change your behaviors, and this is generally going to help you be more intentional with good sleep behaviors and sleep habits. 8 Sleep at home has been super clutch. So 8 Sleep can actually track, so you don't have to wear a tracker. It'll actually track you through the sensors on the bed cover, and it's a cooling bed cover. So you can, or I guess warming too, depending on what you prefer. You can have a temperature curve throughout the night so that when you first fall asleep, your body needs to cool. You can set it really cold, and then it can warm up a little bit throughout the night. And I sleep better at home as a result. Here, when I'm traveling, I don't have an 8 Sleep, and I'm oftentimes waking up warm, maybe like 5 or 6 a.m. before I want to. Maybe I want to wake up at 7 instead. Whereas with the 8 Sleep, you can have it match your preferences throughout the night so that you stay in deeper sleep longer. That's been a game changer. I'd say my 3 favorite devices would be 8 Sleep, Oura Ring, and Apple Watch. I'm still experimenting with the Apple Watch as a sleep tracker. I've been using it for a couple months now, and it's a lot better than it used to be with these various software updates over the years. And if you are in the market for either an 8 Sleep cover or an Oura Ring, you can use my special links in the description for an exclusive discount. And as for the Apple Watch, I actually recommend you go to Costco, because that's where I got mine, and I saved quite a bit of money that way. Guys, such interesting questions this time. How can one make close friends in today's day and age as an adult if they never had or made any friends before as a kid? Is it possible to learn how and accomplish? How can one accomplish this best? I think the first question is identifying why you don't have as many friends as you would like, or as many close relationships. Is that because you're not giving people the time and effort and attention required to maintain and build relationships? Is it because you've been constantly moving and haven't been able to maintain contact in a consistent way with one person? Is it because you have social anxiety and interacting with people just isn't comfortable for you? Is it your behavior, unbeknownst to you, is driving people away? Maybe you're the kind of person that unintentionally is talking about themselves too much, or is like gossiping and shit-talking people, or any variety of behaviors that can turn people off. So I'd say that's the first step, and there's various tactics for each of those. I think watching certain YouTube channels can even help with that. Charisma on Command is a very popular one. Talking to a therapist can help with that. Asking family for feedback can also be helpful. And then when it comes to meeting people, you want to find people that have aligned interests, obviously. So doing stuff like going to a racetrack to meet other car enthusiasts would be a good idea. So spend time doing those hobbies and interacting with people, ideally in real life, but you can even do this online. If you're an avid gamer or a sim racer, right, then you can do online races or online games and meet people that way. But if you're meeting people in person, like for me, it's cycling, it's a lot of car stuff, both filming car reviews for the YouTube channel, but also just attending track days where I take my own car on a racetrack, or even drive other people's cars on the racetrack and review it. That's been probably the greatest way I've made so many close friends in recent years. And that's because it's one of my greatest passions, right? So follow your passions and get involved on a regular basis in groups or communities that center and revolve around that hobby, whether it's meetup to do some like group run or group hike, or Facebook groups, or your local bicycle shop may have a group ride. Another excellent question: would you prefer having kids early in your career, as in early 20s, versus doing what most people do and having kids in their late 20s, early 30s? What are the pros and cons of each? I don't think you understand what it means to have kids until you have kids. Spoken as someone who does not have kids. From many people I've either spoken to or heard from, having kids is one of the greatest experiences of their life. It gives them so much meaning and purpose and so much joy, and the love they feel for their kids is unlike any other. There was some actor recently who was saying like, yeah, you know, I thought I loved my wife and I would do anything for her and you know, give my life for her. And then he says, once I had a kid, everything changed. And now if it was between my wife and my child, I'd like push my wife in front of a bus, no hesitation, just to save my child. Like there's a level of connection and love that you have with your child that I don't think you otherwise can experience. For me as well, my childhood is not what I would want for my future children. So being a father is gonna be like playing replay in a way and doing it better this time, being an amazing father figure to them. So I think that'll be very meaningful and cathartic. But the downsides are that it takes a lot of time and you're not gonna be able to travel as much. There's a lot of costs associated with having a kid, and doing it in your 20s, people do it all the time. But for me and my values and how I wanna experience life, I knew that I wanted to have kids no sooner than my 30s. I'm now 34. I thought I wanted to have a kid at 35, but it's not really something that you can like plan. I want to have it at this age, this date, this year. It's, you have to find the right partner first. And that's probably the hardest thing because it is the most important decision you're ever going to make. It's going to compound. We talk about compounding in finances. We talk about compounding in other areas of life like fitness, but choosing the right life partner is one of the most important compounding decisions that you'll ever make. I'm grateful that I did not have kids in my 20s because what I want to do is focus on my career and pushing my limits, and I wanted to travel and I want to have certain experiences that would have been much more difficult if I had kids. I say that now, again, as someone who does not have kids, but maybe when I do have kids, I'm like,
damn it, why didn't I do this sooner?
I would have had 5 extra years with my kids. I want the Kevin Jubbal dating advice, how to find someone and how to keep them. My philosophy is you work on improving yourself and becoming the kind of person that you're proud of, that you would want to date. And then as a downstream effect of that, again, not the primary goal, please do not become one of these pickup guys that just like focuses completely on dating and becomes so one-dimensional and their whole life just revolves around dating. They go to work and then after that, they're just doing pickup stuff and trying to meet girls, and it's like, it's sad. And I've met some guys who are like in their early 40s and they're still doing that. I'm like, you never grew out of your early to mid 20s phase, huh? So you focus on yourself and improving your life, not because it's the means to the end of getting the partner you want. You focus on yourself and improving your life because you are the one living your life moment to moment, day to day. So why would you not want that to be better? It doesn't make sense to me. Some people find it strange if you're into self-development and wanting to improve your life. And I'm like, why would you not? The only downside is that there's some effort and maybe some pain, but there's so much upside. So you do those things, you become more worldly, you become more educated, you take good care of yourself with your fitness and your nutrition and your sleep, and you do these things because it is good for you and you pursue your hobbies with passion. And then, guess what? By doing those things, you just become more attractive. And if you're anything like me, you'll notice a big shift over the years. So looking at 18 to 20 versus 28 to 30, there was a big shift in my dating life and far reduced frustration, far greater optionality, far more satisfaction with my dating life because I was a different person 10 years later. And it wasn't that I faked it until I made it to have the confidence, it's that I did the hard things, I put in the work, I worked on myself, and then I earned that confidence. And it just came across naturally. And it wasn't just the confidence, it was the other things too, the experiences I had, the kind of person that I had become over those 10 years. That being said, I'm absolutely not a dating expert. One thing I do find very useful being in a relationship is that it's a forcing function to also work on yourself in a certain way. Because when you're single, like when I talk about these guys who just relationship to relationship or just like fling to fling, anytime there's any resistance or conflict or stress in that partnership, they just run off to the next. But when you're in a committed relationship, months, years, it's a forcing function where you cannot run away from your own bullshit. When you are in conflict with your partner, you have to stop and reflect and think, yeah, I guess this person does have a good point. Let me try to see their perspective. I wasn't aware of how I was doing things in this way and it can be perceived, unintentionally in that way. Thoughts on Miatas? Miatas are great. I own a 2024 ND3, more on the car channel. Thoughts on undergrad med schools? Do you think that 18-year-old is old enough to take a decision? Yeah, so combined med programs, the BSMDs and equivalents are great options for a certain type of student. Some 18-year-olds, yeah, they're actually very happy with the decision and they go on to become doctors and very happy doctors, and they save like 1 or 2 years of training by doing that. But there are a good portion of people who also regret it. So we talk far more about this on both the Med School Insider channel, where we have a focused video on BSMD, and then also on our website, we have more extensive guides. We go way more in depth and in detail, more so than what we can do on YouTube. And check it out, medschoolinsiders.com. On the blog, search BSMD. You'll find a lot of great articles about exactly that question. Practical ways to switch from clinical medicine to medical entrepreneurship as a doctor. There are going to be certain incubators and accelerators, usually affiliated near major cities, and oftentimes close to universities, where you can invest, you can advise. That's one great option. By building a personal brand, then you can also get a lot of inbound and also help your outbound that way as well, where people want to work with you, they respect you because you're an expert in, let's say, cardiology or whatever your specialty is. Attending conferences and other even smaller events that are focused on medical devices or medical entrepreneurship is going to be helpful to network, to see what kind of opportunities there are. And depending on how much time and effort you have, just like trying to put something out into the world too. My first foray in this was levels.link, biomedical health incubator at UC San Diego that I started, that was modeled after Stanford's biodesign. And it was tough. Like, where do you start? How do you have an idea and then make that actually happen? You go and you start talking to a bunch of different people, and they point you to others, they make some introductions, and then they say, hey, cool idea, but we need to have something more solid. So then you go home and then you create this like 15-page single-spaced research document that pulls from the literature and summarizes your plan and the strengths and weaknesses of the various plans and how this is going to fit into this university. And you learn so much along the way, and you meet these people, you learn about various types of startups and investing in both VC and angel. That's obviously going to take way more time. Not everyone can do that, but there are some options. Does the prestige of university where I am doing my pre-med matter? I'm doing it in Canada. Most people are going to hold hands and sing Kumbaya and say, it doesn't matter what school you go to, whether undergrad or med school, you're all the same and you're all equal. And you can be the same and equal in terms of your human value, but in terms of the actual upsides and downsides of your future medical training, there are some implications. If you're already at an institution, then you do the best with what you have at that institution. And then stressing about your prestige doesn't really help. But if you're at the point where you are deciding which institution to attend, then there are distinct pros and cons of going to a more or less prestigious university or medical school. And we actually cover that in a dedicated video on the Med School Insider channel. Would you ever consider doing residency again? No. One thing that I've been reflecting on is, I think compared to the average person, I enjoy freedom of time more. When I was in med school, I loved my preclinical years, and more so than my clinical years, except for the rotations that I was drawn to during my clinical rotations, like plastic surgery, neurosurgery. A lot of the surgical rotations I enjoyed more. But the thing I loved about my preclinical years was autonomy of my time. There was maybe like 5 hours per week, maybe a little bit more than that, where you had to be in class, you had to be at a certain place at a certain time. But apart from that, you just had to study, get your shit done. You could work out when you want, you could sleep when you want, wake up when you want. And I loved that. And residency is kind of the opposite of that. And there's also not really much upside to it. The kind of life that I'm leading now and the directions that I'm going have so much upside that doing a residency again, I don't see really having anywhere near as much upside. Has the fear of not succeeding ever overcome you with stress in your journey? When I feel it's not really fear of not succeeding, it's like sink or swim pressure. Maybe that's the same thing. Maybe it is, but maybe it's not, because even when you look at people taking tests, I'm the kind of person that generally performs better on the real tests than on my practice tests. So as an example, on my MCAT, I was scoring 98th, maybe 97th to 99th percentile. And if you average my last 3 or 5 practice tests, I was like 98th percentile. But then on the real test, I got 100th percentile, or 99.9. The reason I say this is that we're wired differently. And maybe it's not even wiring, maybe it's just like the way that our self-talk. And my self-talk when it comes to these more stressful situations, like taking tests, ever since grade school as well, there was always like this little level of like excitement, or like the pressure would, I would feel that elevation in my state, a little bit of like, maybe it's cortisol, maybe it's adrenaline, like a subtle amount, right? You feel a little bit up, don't need caffeine or anything, just like already feel elevated. and it would help me focus and do better. And it almost became like a game of like, can I beat the test? And I think when it came to like the fear of not succeeding, I never felt overcome by it. And I think it comes down again to the self-talk, which is that, okay, this stress, this test that is being foisted upon me, whether by choice or not, is here to be a tool or a practice to test my limits and to push myself and to learn and to grow. So when I got inflammatory bowel disease, sometimes I look back and I'm like, damn, how did I have that mindset at that age? Whereas now I feel way more soft and not nearly as like hardcore in certain ways. But back then it was like, this is a very overwhelming, stressful, difficult time. Either I'm gonna give up and become depressed, or I'm just gonna kick ass and use that fuel to fire me. So it's like, I think it comes down to the self-talk, and I think anyone can learn that. Maybe for me, it came more readily or more naturally based on my life experiences or my upbringing or my genetic predisposition. I don't know. But I do think you can train yourself to think more that way, and I think that way serves you more than, you know, letting fear pull you down and overwhelm you. And there's no shame in having those emotions and relying on your social support network and such. Get those emotions out, work through them, and then when you feel ready, you get back on the horse and you march forward. What's the fastest car you've driven that can fit a set of golf clubs in the trunk? I haven't tried fitting golf clubs in a lot of these cars. Dude, probably the Corvette C8 Z06. Apologies to any owners. I think it's ugly as sin from the back. It is horrendously ugly now. I think it's gonna age even worse. But it is incredibly capable, incredibly fast, and part of the reason Corvette has such an ugly square rear end is because they knew their clientele, their target demographic, that they wanted to fit a golf bag in the trunk. What would be the ideal way to achieve the flexible work hour lifestyle that you have as an entrepreneur while still working in something medicine related? I don't want to sugarcoat my lifestyle. I think that the flexibility and the freedom of how I spend my time and where I am, like I'm in Japan for the third time in 10 months and I've spent like 6 weeks international in the last year and a half. That being said, I work a lot. I spend a lot of hours working. Weekdays, I'm just working and exercising and eating. That's all I do, which I'm okay with. I like that. I like working towards stuff. I like building stuff. I like the story that I'm building and narrating through my actions. So just keep that in mind, that I don't want to like sugarcoat it and try to do the whole like Instagram reel of, yeah, what I'm doing is amazing and you guys can do this too. You just got to copy me, and like, no, there's pros and cons, and my lifestyle is not for everyone. It depends on your stage in training. If you're in med school and are going to match into residency, choose a specialty that is more conducive to flexible work hours. Having something where you don't have call, or you don't have longitudinal care with patients, things like radiology, things like anesthesiology, things even like emergency medicine are going to be more conducive, although emergency medicine, higher rates of burnout, a lot of charting. With that shift work, it's usually not regular. You're not like working the 9 a.m. shift, 4 days a week. It's all over the place. And that's actually very tough. The inconsistency with your work hours and your sleep schedule is going to wreak havoc. And then if you're later on in your training, let's say you've already chosen a specialty, then focus on either building a private practice yourself, which is going to take years to get to this point, but either build a private practice or choose a job that allows you to have a bit more time for side hustles. Because what you want to do is you don't want to ever quit and just like jump off the deep end and then try to build the airplane as you fall down. What you want to do is work on the side hustle, build this entrepreneurial project you have after work and on the weekends. And some practice types are going to be more conducive to that than others. If you're just getting out of residency and starting a private practice, that is your entrepreneurial hustle. You don't have much time or effort or bandwidth to allocate to other things. But maybe you're 10 years into your private practice and you're more established and you have some other people working underneath you, then it could be more conducive. All right, so we got 2 fitness questions here. You measure your glucose levels often, and it's interesting habit coming from a doctor. Are you diabetic? Are there any other health stats you're paying close attention to? And what would you consider is the best way to track fitness progress? I feel like muscle gain is not enough, to be honest. So there's two categories I think of. One is your actual fitness and your performance, and then one is your body measurement. So when it comes to fitness, we have your strength and we have your cardiorespiratory fitness with VO2 max and your endurance work. VO2 max is like your max utilization of oxygen. It's going to be like very high effort. You're hitting close to, if not your max heart rate, pushing yourself hard. And then endurance work is like the zone 2 stuff, where you are able to do it indefinitely for hours and hours. And it's a different fuel system where it's primarily fat rather than carbs being oxidized. And then on the body measurement side, there are a few things. There's measuring blood glucose. There's like your various labs and such. There's your body composition, your fat to muscle mass and ratio. And now the actual tools I use to measure all of these. Strength is pretty self-explanatory. When it comes to cardio, I like cycling. So I have an indoor trainer. That's where I do most of my endurance zone 2 stuff. And then on outdoor rides, which I enjoy, especially if it's a nice, beautiful, nature and scenery, then I'll do my VO2 max or an interval work there. To measure those, you want to go to a testing facility. Now in the Bay Area, I've been testing at St. Mary's College. Awesome guys there. Shout out to Neil. Very knowledgeable guy who is going to walk you through the testing protocol, and they can actually test your lactate level, which is going to help you identify your zone 2, as well as your VO2 max. They can do this on either a treadmill or on a bike. I do a bike because that's my methodology of training. And you want to stick on that same mechanism when you're both training and testing. So they hook you up, chest heart rate strap, as well as a mask to measure your gas exchange, your oxygen, carbon dioxide. And then you start pushing harder and faster. Faster on a treadmill, harder on a bike. They keep increasing the resistance on a stepwise manner. And with the data, they can tell you what your VO2 max is, what your lactate is, and it's gonna serve as like a benchmark for when you're creating your own training plans. I actually have been using ChatGPT to help create and fine tune my own training plans. And then you can measure that 6 months, a year later, and see have you improved, and if so, by how much. I'm at the like 75th or 80th percentile for VO2 max at my age, which is actually pretty bad when you consider the average fitness level for the population. So I want to get that higher. I want to get to like 95th percentile plus. But yeah, big shout out to the St. Mary's College guys and to Neil and the team. They have a cool setup too where you don't pay them directly. You actually donate to, I think it's an Australian Wildlife Conservation Fund on GoFundMe. So you go there and then at the end you donate. Link to them and more details down in the description. Now on the body measurement side, I use a CGM. I have a very high predisposition towards diabetes, so trying to minimize my risk there and using CGM to tailor my diet and optimize my metabolic health. So big shout out to Levels. I've been a happy customer of theirs since 2019, and then I partnered with them in 2021, I believe. And they've been awesome. They have an incredible app that can be used either with or without a CGM with the focus of your metabolic health, your physical health. If you want to check them out, you can get 2 months free on your annual subscription with the link in the description. So I use the CGM to optimize that side. In terms of body composition, I use a Withing scale. They have various scales, and I have a few different ones that I'm trying out, but they all use bioimpedance to measure or to estimate your body fat. So the nice thing is it also syncs automatically to your smartphone. And you can find some other cheaper devices on Amazon. I used to use like a Renpho, but it always had connectivity issues and it was also super inaccurate. But keep in mind, bioimpedance, it's highly precise but not accurate, meaning the values are going to cluster. So if my Withing scale says I'm 20% body fat and then it goes down by 1% to 19, I don't know if I'm actually 20 to 19, but I know that my real body fat percentage has decreased by 1%. So precise but not accurate, which is useful because you care about the trends more so than the actual number. If it's trending up or down, that is the tight feedback loop that I want to change my behaviors. And then every 6 to 12 months, I do a DEXA scan. And the DEXA scan is super low dose X-ray that is used to measure things like bone density for those who have osteoporosis and also your body composition. So you can look at the actual mass of muscle to fat, and there are certain indices too, like your appendicular lean mass index, ALMI, or FFMI, your fat-free mass index. Other measurements to kind of show you where you are compared to the population. And not mission critical, I think the more important thing is actually your visceral body fat. The body fat inside your abdomen around your organs. That is the most problematic when it comes to your long-term health, and then also your subcutaneous fat, which is more, it's not as problematic to your long-term health, but it's more of the aesthetic concerns that we have about our subcutaneous fat, meaning underneath the skin. And I've been using, I think it's a DexaFit location, that's about 75 or $100 per scan. What's the best way to find mentors in med school that can vouch for you when you apply to residency? I'm interested in urology. The two main methods are, number one, kick ass on your rotation. Do whatever you can to stand out. We actually have these specialty guides on the Med School Insider's blog. So for urology or plastic surgery or general surgery, what are the things you need to know for that rotation before you even walk in, so that when you do walk in, you can impress people. Wow, this guy is so prepared. He's so much better than all the other third years or all the other fourth years. For things that are surgical like urology, focus on your technique in the OR. A little bit of prep time can go a long way. I talk about this more on some other videos linked below about like what you can do, the actual techniques for knot tying and suturing that will help you stand out. And most people are not willing to do this. And if you put some consistent time and effort, you can really stand out. I got a lot of compliments even on my away rotation. And the final way would be research, of course. Under promise, over deliver on research. One of the more advanced tactics that I recommend that has gotten me many strong letters of recommendation and really wowed people is you can create a research project depending on your data set that you have. Like maybe you have, I did this a lot with NISQIP. It's like the surgical database. And I would crunch the data. I'd have a draft manuscript, hand it to them. Hey, by the way, I need a PI for this. Can you take a look and do you want to be involved in this project? And they're like, wait, you already did the project and I'm just signing off on it and like giving you some feedback? What? Because what they're thinking is that you're going to approach them for research, and it's going to be such a huge time commitment and effort on their part to get you from point A to publishing. You come 9/10 of the way, almost at the finish line. Hey, here's a manuscript. They're blown away. They're super impressed. If you want to do that, we have a whole research course that dives into that and other very advanced tactics that got me, Dr. Patel, and Dr. Anderson each more than 60 research items by the time we got to residency, which is absurd. I think the highest average is like neurosurgery at 37 research items. And next is like plastic surgery at like 34. And we did this years ago when the average number of research items was far lower than that. The average number of research items for every single specialty, I think except for like radiation oncology, has been going up year to year. Like plastic surgery, I think increased by like 15 research items in 4 years, which is nuts. Research is going to be very important to stand out when you're applying to competitive specialties like urology. And it's not just the number of items you do, but also how do you impress your PIs so that urology attending, when it comes time to apply to residency, they're gonna go to bat for you, and they're gonna be invested in your success, and they're gonna make the calls and try to get you to your top ranked institution. So again, the research course linked below. You can get 15% off with Japan AMA 2025 coupon code linked below. How to enjoy the research process and improve academic writing skills. You gotta do more research. Improving your academic writing skills, I'd say actually start by reading more research, understand the research lingo and how things are approached. And then you have to do a lot of research to get better at it. It was painful for me, a lot of friction, and eventually you learn and you get better and you start pushing the envelope and you try like different things and you talk to different people. Again, the research course does streamline that whole process so that you don't have to spend the 8 years I did from college to med school to learn all those tools and tactics. And eventually, you know, it was only like in my last 1 or 2 years of doing research in med school that I knew these more advanced tactics to impress PIs. So you can shortcut that whole process with that Med School Insiders research course. Importance of obtaining research for residency now, given the new budget cuts to the NIH. We'll be starting at a USMD this summer. Want to hear your thoughts. First of all, congrats on your med school acceptance. I don't think that with the budget cuts, it's going to change the importance of research for either applying to med school or for matching into residency. It's going to be harder for you to get your summer grants and internships at the NIH to do research, but that doesn't change the importance of research as a whole. Yes, the NIH is the largest public funder of research in the US, but there's still tons and tons of other opportunities. Research really has been the single highest leverage way to stand out as a residency applicant, in the sense that with the fewest units of effort, you put in 10 units of effort, you can get 100 units of reward if you're doing it intelligently, strategically. And there are so many downstream benefits as well, like the relationships you build and having these PIs who are willing to bat for you. But yeah, we cover all that and much more in that research course linked below. Having a low GPA of 3.2 with no research and a great MCAT score with solid extracurriculars, is it a good idea to still apply this cycle or wait till senior year to build up GPA and research and then apply to med school? I would wait, man. With a low GPA, no research, good MCAT, solid extracurriculars, you're just putting yourself at suboptimal odds and just taking an extra year, maybe even 2, to improve your GPA, to get some research, to strengthen your extracurriculars even more and get really strong letters of recommendation too between now and then, is only going to put you in a better position. And oftentimes we're rushing to apply to get into med school. And I get it, the opportunity cost of 1 year of attending salary is like 300K. So I get the rush, but at the same time, if you're at lower odds of getting accepted to a medical school, and especially a medical school that you would be excited to attend, it's probably worth it to wait and work on your app. I've heard most DO schools recommend a DO letter, but don't require it. It's a weird requirement in getting a strong physician's letter. Challenging enough as it is. What if a student just doesn't have access or connections to a DO physician? I would argue that you can get access to a DO physician. It's probably gonna be through shadowing. Get started early, because you wait until the last minute, you try to make that happen and get a letter of rec, it's not gonna work out well. But you do want to get a DO letter of recommendation. Can you apply with that one and still get accepted? Yes, but again, this is a game of asymmetric risk and higher leverage opportunities. So what I mean by that is, where can you put in the smallest units of effort and get the largest units of reward? And getting a DO letter of recommendation through shadowing, doing that a handful of times, building a relationship, maybe even doing some research with that DO physician if they're doing research, which is actually statistically less likely than if they're an MD, but still, that's going to be a relatively low effort, possibly higher reward activity. We have a few other questions here about letters of recommendation and the application process. Now, we do have a whole series, this whole playlist of how to apply to medical school on the Med School Insiders channel. And that's gonna go through all these various topics in great detail, dedicated videos on each, linked below. And we also have accompanying articles. So in the description of each video, you can click the blog post and you can get the same content as the video in written format with graphics and diagrams. And sometimes, actually very frequently, more information there than what's in the video, because the video, we have to make it like a 10, 15-minute video for YouTube, whereas the blog can be longer and more thorough. So check those out, it's gonna be very helpful. If you had to, would you redo med school or redo undergrad? I'd redo med school. Like the subject matter, love UC San Diego, surrounded by people that inspired me, definitely med school. Have you noticed a measurable increase in net worth since you started eating sardines? I have. It's gonna be a no from me. I guess admittedly, I only had a sardine eating phase for like 1 or 2 months. So I guess I would have to go back and look at my net worth during those 1 or 2 months to answer that question. How do you keep your skin looking youthful? I don't think my skin looks that youthful, but my routine is, I focus a lot more on hydration now of my skin than I did before. So I use like a toner, hyaluronic acid, eye cream from Trader Joe's actually, and then a moisturizer. And if I'm going outside, even during the winter, I wear sunscreen. And I started caring a lot more about sunscreen ever since med school, when I was focused on plastic surgery and you're like dealing with skin cancer on the reg. I realized how important it is. And especially for someone like me, immunosuppressed. So I've been very good and very diligent about sunscreen. And I've tried so many different sunscreens. And I have a few different sunscreens for different purposes. Like when I go for a bike ride, I have a more thick, physical sunscreen that I wouldn't want to use every day because it just feels kind of nasty, but it offers great protection. And then day to day, I have some lighter sunscreens. So I'll have some links to my favorite items below. But a lot of these things, they don't have to be pricey. Trader Joe's hyaluronic acid, Trader Joe's eye cream. The toner I have is this Pion, it's like PYO, it's from Amazon, link below. For moisturizer, there's a few from La Roche-Posay that I enjoy. I'm trying out a couple ones. They've sent me a few different batches of things to try. Again, I'll leave my favorite items linked below. And then every night I use tretinoin on the face for acne, which I started using pretty regularly in my late teens, early 20s. And that also increases photosensitivity, so even more important to use sunscreen. But I've also found that diet can trigger acne. I've been getting a lot of acne recently from these like protein chips I was trying out. Can you talk more about dual residencies and how they get paid? Is residency different depending on how I decide to approach it? Dual residency in orthopedic and plastic surgery. So there are a few dual residency programs, but they're kind of set out in certain combinations. You can't really do orthopedic plastics unless you want to do a 5-year orthopedic surgery residency and then a 6-year plastic surgery residency. You'd have to decide on one of those two. But if you wanted to do like internal medicine pediatrics, there's med peds for that. Pulmonology and critical care, pulm crit care. And those are essentially treated just as a single residency in that case. And you get paid just as you would with any other residency, starting around 60K, going up by around like 2 to 3K per year. How does top students in top universities study? What's so unique about them? We actually cover all this and more, the whole study strategies of top performing students, how to become a top performing student yourself. Over on the Med School Insider channel, we have the study strategies playlist that goes over the actual evidence-based study strategies and principles that these top students are using, and it can help you. I've received so many messages and comments from people saying, hey, I got C's and I'm getting A's. What's been shown to work works. And people think that, oh, like that's not my learning style. Well, there are data now that suggest your learning style is useless because it just makes you do what is more comfortable, but not what is more effective. And what is effective is what is more effective, regardless of your preference. So focus on that study strategies playlist and you'll get all the answers you need on how top students study. Favorite kind and flavor of tea. I love oolongs, Taiwanese oolongs, Chinese oolongs. My all-time favorite was Spring Alishan over from Tea and Whisk. I haven't tried the more recent 2024, 2025 batch, but I remember the earlier batches I loved. Speaking of which, I need to go buy some more. By the way, you can get 15% off using coupon code kevinjubbal or link in the description. And Tea Bloom as well. Tea Bloom has Tea Guan Yin and White Tip Oolong. Those are my two go-tos. And you can get 10% off with code Jubbal10, again, linked in the description. What got you into cars? What would you recommend for a first car? I don't remember what got me into cars. I have some early memories from when I was 3 of wanting to learn how to draw cars from my granddad. And there was a little like pedal powered go-kart that we had at our house. And I just always loved cars. I don't know what it is. First car, I think the Scion FRS, or rather Toyota GT86, or sorry, GR86 and Subaru BRZ. The GT86 is the prior gen, Subaru BRZ. If you want to go used, those are great. If you want to go new, obviously the newer gen, the second gen twins. Mazda Miata is great, but it's a little bit too small. I own a Mazda Miata now myself. Those cars are great because, especially the twins, they have this great level of practicality. Fold the seats down. You can fit a bike back there, 58 centimeter road bike, the one that I ride. I just had to take off the front wheel and the saddle and it would fit. But they're great cars because they teach you how to drive better. I think a lot of times people are interested in cars and they care about horsepower and performance numbers and 0 to 60 and top speed, which I don't think is that important, actually. I think the other things like chassis dynamics, inputs, feedback, things that make you a better driver are going to be more rewarding. And then you can always change to a more powerful car in the future once you have that more foundational skill set. Plus, it's also fun as hell to be overtaking cars with twice your horsepower in a slower car because now it's fundamentally driver skill more so than the car doing the work. You've mentioned a couple times you find the Emira a more fun car than the ND3. Can you expand or do a video? I should do a video on this. In short, the ND3 is lightweight, has this purity of inputs, engine is very smooth. I love the car. I own both an ND3 and an Emira, for those who don't follow my car channel. The Emira, though, has a sense of occasion and fun to it that is distinctly different. It's much heavier. It's like 800 pounds heavier. Makes more than twice the horsepower. Has hydraulic steering, amazing feedback. It's a mid-engine rear-wheel drive car, which obviously gives you a different look, a different feel, and different chassis dynamics as you're pushing it. The car is very playful on street and very engaging. More talkative and more feedback than the Miata for sure, stock for stock. What is your current credit card strategy? For the business, we put a lot of spend on credit cards, so I try to just lump up the auto pay or lump up the categories of expenses based on the cards that are gonna give me the highest percentage back. So back in med school, residency, and the early years of the business, I was opening up 5, 10 credit cards per year on average. Nowadays, it's like 1 or 2. I might be increasing that in the near future because I'm doing so many international trips that I'm running out of points pretty quickly. So I put a lot of spend on my Hyatt business card and my Chase business cards because I like staying at Hyatt hotels, and the points, they're very valuable. I can get the cents per point, the value of each point is quite high. For airlines, I don't really have any loyalty other than Southwest. I do a lot of intra-US travel on Southwest. Internationally, there's no loyalty. I just go on whatever is most convenient. And for those, mostly Amex points. Sometimes I'll open up like an American Airlines card or a United card. Delta is just like too low value. They've devalued that to the point where it's not even worth it. I'm deciding between cards, neurology, ID, and EM. Card stands out, but people say that the work-life balance isn't good. Is it bad for things like family and a hobby? Is lifestyle really that bad? I don't know, man. I'm not sure who's telling you cardiology is really bad. I mean, if you're doing like the interventional cards and doing more procedures, I understand. But generally speaking, cardiology lifestyle is gonna be a lot better than something surgical, as an example. Is it gonna be as chill as, let's say, psych or radiology? No. But these 4 different fields are all quite different. I would suggest you spend time shadowing or if you're pre-med and if you're in med school, then use elective time or on your rotations, try to seek out those specialties in particular, because they're each quite different. And we have So You Want to Be episodes on the Med School Insiders channel that go into a very objective overview, a very thorough overview where we worked with actual cardiologists or neurologists, etc., to work on their videos. And I also did a Why I Didn't video, I think for all of these specialties except for infectious disease, which is on this channel. And I just tell you my personal experience with the specialty. I think cards is great though. Cards is a great specialty, and I don't think family and hobby life would suffer much from cardiology. People are going crazy over ice baths and saunas and all these things for health improvement. I don't know what to believe. Do you think any of it actually helps, or is it just hype? There are data that suggest using traditional saunas, and we're talking like 175, 180 degrees Fahrenheit plus, have health benefits and have been associated with longevity. Heat shock protein, there's various mechanisms discussed. Are these the strongest pieces of research? No, but I think it's strong enough to say that this is something that is worthwhile. Ice baths, the data there is not nearly as strong, but the feeling you get from just ice baths and the resilience benefits you get from ice baths, I personally enjoy. I'm enjoying saunas more and more as the years go on. And when I travel, as an example, here in Japan, they have these beautiful onsens, and it's like a whole experience, a very nice, pleasant, relaxing experience. I actually have a sweat tent at home, and that sweat tent, I have a full review right up here. But in short, I think now that I have a sauna at my house, I want to keep using a sauna at my house. I hate going to the regular gym in America because it's kind of smelly, kind of crowded, not the best etiquette. And you have your own sauna at home. It just eliminates all of the downsides. The issue that I had with the sweat tent is that my house is at the edge of a neighborhood and there's a lot of wind, and it's just like the sweat tent just isn't designed for very windy areas, and Vegas is incredibly windy. So that's the main downside I have. Otherwise, I would have been very happy with it. But this makes me want to get like a more traditional, like wooden or just more fixed structure sauna that is not going to be tossed around in the wind or damaged by the wind. But for those who do want to try out something cheaper, because the sweat tent is more approachable, more affordable than these barrel saunas and such, less than half the price, less than a third of the price actually, then you can use Kevin100 for $100 off your sweat tent, linked below. And there are also some data on infrared saunas, but it seems that infrared saunas are not going to be as beneficial as the traditional saunas that get hotter. So infrared is like 140, 150. Again, traditional is like 175, 180 plus in terms of degrees Fahrenheit. Should I stop smoking weed when preparing for the MCAT, and do med students smoke? I know a few, but want your opinion. I mean, I'm sure some do. In your preclinical years, it's very unlikely to get drug tested, except for when you first start med school, which some schools might do. But during your clinicals, I remember getting drug tested, especially for my peds rotation. I just don't think it's worth the risk. Like, you know, you get caught and now you get kicked out. I did dabble in college, and it was more after I got into med school. I think during the summer when I studied for the MCAT, I think I did it like once with some friends, and I was like, this is dumb. I'm putting all this effort into studying, and then I'm gonna compromise my memory consolidation. Like, what's the fucking point? So I did it once during that summer, didn't touch it again. I think same with alcohol. I didn't touch alcohol that summer because I was just focused on MCAT studying. Dude, you know what's funny? StarCraft 2 came out that year, and my brother was like,
yo, you bought this game, why aren't you playing it?
I was like, dude, I got the MCAT. I got my priorities in order, man. I can't waste time on this. Yeah, it's just so interesting to me that people are willing to give into these short-term temptations and really just tank their long-term goals so willingly and so easily. I think I barely even touched weed when I was in med school. And if I did, it was only in the first 2 years. Definitely not in my third and fourth years, and definitely not in residency either. And also as I got older, I just don't really enjoy weed. How are you liking the barefoot shoes? Dude, they're great. I now work out exclusively with them. I even travel with them. So I have like my Vivo barefoots, which are like my day-to-day. And then I have my Vibrams, the crazy looking toe shoes that always get stares. And those give me so much more stability when I'm at the gym. And I feel such a huge difference, especially on leg days. So I travel with those now too. I've been using them for about a year and a few months. What do you think about medical training programs in other countries that have 6-year bachelor's program instead of 4 years undergrad plus 4 years med school? Pros and cons. I think one of the pros is that you save time. You don't have to do 4 years of undergrad, and if you know you want to be a doctor, boom, you just go straight through. And BSMD in the US is similar to that. The downside is that normally when you're 17 applying to these programs, or 18 when you graduate, you don't have the life experience and maturity to really commit to something like that. So there is some utility to doing 4 years of undergrad and exploring different things beyond just medicine, because medicine is a very widely known profession, and even as a kid, you know what it is. But there are many things that you don't know until you get to college, and then you start experiencing other things. Oh yeah, wait, maybe medicine isn't right. Maybe I should be a PA or something else. What's your advice for a senior in university who still can't choose between becoming a doctor and becoming a physician assistant, even after shadowing both fields? Can you give pros and cons of both sides? This is an excellent question. You know what you should check out? We have this new career battle series on Med School Insiders. And we've already done doctor versus surgeon. We've done, I think, diagnostic versus interventional radiology. We're gonna have some more. We're gonna definitely do doctor versus PA. And what this career battle series does is we take these two careers or specialties and we talk about how they're similar, how they're different, and the pros and cons of each. So I think that video on doctor versus PA is gonna be very well suited. Subscribe to Med School Insiders so that you don't miss that. And if you guys have other career battle suggestions or requests, then please leave a comment down below. Do you have a membership at Spring Mountain Racetrack? How is it? So Spring Mountain Motorsports Ranch is in Pahrump, about 45 minutes out of Las Vegas. And there's a few racetracks there. And it's like Car Guys Disneyland. It's an awesome place. But it's very expensive to have a membership. So I usually attend through the other organizations where you like pay a couple $100s to attend an event, versus a membership is like $70,000 initiation and then $7,000 per year. It's just not worth it to me. Do you regret seeing your friends finishing up residency and wish you stuck with it? Ooh, that's a good question. A lot of my friends have been finishing up in the last couple of years. I would have finished a year and a half ago. Yeah, a year and a half ago. And I actually just connected recently with my old plastic surgery co-intern. And I don't know, man. He seems really happy with what he's doing. He's got a craniofacial attending job at an academic institution. He did craniofacial fellowship after plastics residency. So he just finished like 6 months ago, because 6 years of residency plus 1 year fellowship, 7 years total training. No, man, I'm really happy with this path. And I think it aligns with my priorities and the way I want to live life. But it's not like doing the plastic surgery thing or doing any specialty is bad or wrong. It just didn't align as well with this option. And the funny thing is, if I didn't know about entrepreneurship, I wasn't exposed in the way that I was, I probably would be a plastic surgeon right now and be very happy. Like I think they were both great options, and people oftentimes think that I hated it or I didn't like it. It's like, well, it's a cool position to be in when you have two great options. Again, going back to what I said earlier in the video, I love freedom. I love being able to go when I want, where I want, spend as much or as little time working as I want. If I'm falling sick, then I can take more time off and cancel my plans. And this level of flexibility is incredible. And there's other things that I didn't even realize when I made that decision. Things like being able to start this car channel on YouTube, which has brought me so much joy, man. I lose money with every video. So please subscribe. It's gonna help us out to hopefully get us to break even. So I'm probably losing like $1,500 a month to just run this car channel, minimum, just based on like editors and YouTube producer and social media assistant and stuff like that. That's not even accounting whatever travel costs and gas costs and other car expenses I have. Let's not think about that. But if I was doing plastic surgery, there's no way I'd have the time, the flexibility, the capacity to do that. And that brings me so much joy. Financially, I'm in a much better position now than I would be had I done plastics, which is mostly due to the fact that by doing my business, I could start earning a better income sooner. Whereas with plastics, I would have to be a resident for 6 years minimum plus 1 year if I wanted to do like micro or hand. I was leaning towards hand. So like that delay in earnings is significant. Like 6-7 years is a long time. I would not have been able to buy a house like I did 3-4 years ago. 4 years ago now, wow. I still feel like I have tremendous impact. Actually, probably even more impact. The number of messages we get from people whose like lives are transformed by getting into med school after they failed multiple times and they were reapplicants for the 3rd, 4th time, or students who were struggling with school and they were getting C's and D's and now they're getting A's. Like, there's a different kind of connection and impact and meaning that I'm deriving from this versus one-on-one patient encounters as a plastic surgeon. But I guess the main downside, the main cost is prestige, right? So saying you're a plastic surgeon is way more badass than saying you're a medical education entrepreneur and, you know, whatever other things I do on the side. But I just don't think that prestige was that important to me in the grand scheme of things. I think prestige is like one very small component, and I think the ways that I'm living my life moment to moment, day to day, those are far more meaningful than prestige, right? I guess the other thing is I love working with my hands, and I obviously don't get that nearly as much with this career path versus plastic surgery. I've loved working with my hands ever since I was a kid, building model cars and RC cars and doing art and all that stuff. I love working with my hands, and sometimes I miss that. But then I go back to drawing. I go back to, like, I've taken some classes recently. I've been doing some pottery or doing some drawing classes. And that's one way that I can get reconnected. But yeah, I'm really happy for my friends. A lot of them now living the attending life, living the dream, and it's cool, man. It's cool. Some of them are in academia, some are in community. One guy is starting his own private practice. Actually, it's gonna be a day in the life episode featuring him. I think that one's gonna be a lot of fun. All right, guys, thank you for such amazing, inquisitive questions this time around. It's been a lot of fun. And if you want your question answered in the next AMA, make sure you follow me here on YouTube or on Instagram. That's where we gather questions on the community posts and in the Instagram stories. Much love, my friends. See you in that next one.